Hello and welcome to Catholic Unscripted. I'm Catherine Bennett.
I'm Mark Lambert.
I'm Gavin Ashington.
Well, the first thing we want to say is yay for Ireland, a celebration over the fact that in the recent vote on Friday, we did a video about it, you may have seen, that Ireland voted overwhelmingly to keep the word mother in the Constitution. What a wonderful result on this Mothering Sunday, as well as refusing to redefine family in durable relationships. So if you haven't seen, although the referendum has taken place, we recorded a video with Stephen Brown of Catholic Arena, and it's very interesting looking at what was being proposed in Ireland. But of course, as we know, this probably won't be the last of it, but the battle is won for now, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah, thank God. A real result, wasn't it? And they find, I think Gavin shared it, that they found a lot of people were putting miraculous medals and St. Benedict's medals in the, and you think, wow, brilliant. There's life in the old dog yet, it might not be all over in Ireland, because I was getting worried there, my own homeland, like, my maternal homeland, and where I got the faith from, and where I always thought, that everyone was so Catholic, and then they seem to have been doing the best to completely erase their own heritage for the last 10 years or so. So this job is to get Fianna Fáil out. And
no sooner had the result come in than there was talk of them now looking at introducing laws around euthanasia. But so it goes, And it was interesting that the result was really overwhelming all across Ireland. It wasn't marginal, which is great, except in, I think, South Dublin or Dublin 4, as they call it, the metropolitan elite types, as it were. But it was brilliant. It was a brilliant result.
Yes, it was almost a referendum on the Catholic Church. We've heard so many bad things about Irish disillusionment and the evaporation of Catholic faith in Ireland, and we believed them all, but they weren't all true. There's a real fight back for the faith there, and I think this referendum showed it. It was a really stupid referendum to try and pull off, but on the other hand, it was targeted right at the heart of Catholic faith, right at the heart of Our Lady and of motherhood and of femininity. So nobody knew what the outcome was going to be. It was really interesting that the people that we know there, people we've cooperated with and spoken with, and also the people who asked for our help, small though it was, they didn't know either. Nobody knew. So what we've discovered is that there's a foundation to fight back for the faith in Ireland, and in a way, it seems to me that this is a bit like a template for the whole of Europe. The more that Ireland goes down the tubes, the more Christendom in Europe goes down the tubes. This shows us some backbone remaining, and we should take courage and be proud of the Irish and proud of the Catholic Church, and I think take some hope from it too.
Yeah, well done, Ireland.
Yes, well done, Ireland. I thought it was interesting, this comment from Leo Varadkar. It was our responsibility, he said in an interview yesterday, to convince the majority of people to vote yes, and we clearly failed to do so. You thought, that's a bit telling, isn't it? Is it your responsibility to convince and manipulate people, or is it your responsibility just to ask the Irish people what they think? He sort of gave something away there, didn't he, in those comments?
Well, and that's the way they've done it with everything, with abortion. They changed the wording a little bit and roll the thing out again, which is very frustrating. But hopefully the Irish people are starting to get wise to it now.
Yeah. Well, from one set of politics to another, and over to America, where Biden has recently given his State of the Union address and really does seem to be going on this pro-abortion ticket, doesn't he, Mark? He talked about abortion rights in a post-Roe v. Wade America, and said, I promise you, really, really sort of vociferously, really was quite emphatic. I promise you, I will restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again. I mean, it's staggering, really, that he claims to be a Catholic and then speaks in this way, firing people up.
Totally frustrating. And although Pope Francis has said that Biden's stance on abortion is incoherent, I do feel that he's been given the blessing of Rome, really, with this. And you can demonstrate that if you look at the way that it's been covered, the previous encounters that they've had. So this is ABC News saying that Biden says that the Pope told him he's a good Catholic, and he's used that all the way through his election. You know, he's in the first term, he used it as a campaign tool that he was a Catholic. You know, and if you look at but like by way of alternative, so people are saying that it wouldn't be politically expedient for the Pope, you know, to scold the president. But if you look at Pope Benedict, so this is an article from 2009 where the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, went over to visit the Pope. And lest anyone be of any confusion about the matter, Pope Benedict issued a letter explaining that she couldn't be a good Catholic. She couldn't be a Catholic in good standing and support abortion. So, and of course, she's been to the Vatican, and Pope Francis has received her as well. So it's disappointing, and I do feel that it's given Joe Biden carte blanche to campaign on this ideology. The fact that the Pope has failed in his duty to stand up and tell him, stand up and condemn what he's doing. It's very, very disappointing. And there's a worrying connection with the campaign going on. We've spoken about it before, but if you go back to 2019, you had Cardinal McElroy and Cardinal Supich trying to reduce the emphasis on abortion in the USCCB's meeting. So they've been sort of trying to push for this seamless garment approach, and the way that they did it was say that it's not Pope Francis. It's not the magisterium of Pope Francis. So I think, given the fact that Pope Francis is being used in this way, it would be very helpful if he came out and made a clear statement, that you can't be a Catholic in good standing and do what Joe Biden is doing in America.
I think it goes further than that. I feel this very strongly because lots of people, as we've talked about before, laugh at me for having become a Catholic under this present Pope, and take some pleasure, I think, in my own discomfiture. And yet, actually, the answer to that is, but he's a very bad Pope. He is the Pope. The See of St. Peter is very precious, and consequently, when you find somebody inhabiting that see unworthily, we're allowed to say so. And the reason it matters is because it's become clearer and clearer, especially in England, that abortion is becoming the template, or the testing. What's it called? When you test something, abortion has become the litmus test. That was it. It's become the litmus test for the spiritual struggle. And we saw this in Manchester the other day, where this extraordinarily enraged crowd set out against the gentle Catholic students who were wanting a pro-life group. Now, of all the things that the Pope has to do in our generation, one of them is to stand up for the unborn child. It's a complete no-brainer. There is no argument about it. That's Orthodox Christianity, let alone Catholicism. If Pope Francis is not willing to hold murderous politicians to account for their desire to sponsor the murder of babies, then there's something very wrong indeed with the way in which he's holding the office. And so I don't think we can say, well, Pelosi and the others can make something of the Pope's endorsement of them. We have to say they're making something of a bad Pope's endorsement of them. And this is unfortunate because we don't want to be driven out to criticize the Pope. We'd really rather not do it. We want to pray for the deepening of his faith and the deepening of his responsibility at the Petrine office. But we have to tell the truth. And abortion is the issue that distinguishes authentic Christianity from inauthentic Christianity at this point.
Yeah, you mentioned there the seamless garment approach, which I'm sure people are familiar with, but it's worth remembering this is very good from Father Geoffrey Kirby, who I've spoken about this before, from Sanctify Them in Truth. Within the moral teachings of the Church, there is a certain ordering or hierarchy of truths. Such an order does not mean that one issue is more true or less true than any other, but rather that the absoluteness of one is greater than the other in terms of how it's lived and applied to our lives and to society. For example, as we will see in future chapters, there is a lot of room given for prudential judgments on immigration or care of the environment, whereas such room for discernment is not present when it comes to abortion. This difference between moral issues exists for three primary reasons: the clarity of the issue, its grave effects to moral goodness, and the possibility of several other virtues accompanying or broadening the issue at hand. So it's poor theology or wayward social policy to attempt to equate the clear evil of abortion with the prudential nature of other social questions. Such exaggerated thought is oftentimes heard among liberal theologians, namely, yes, abortion is terrible, but so are our immigration laws. A faulty comparison such as this is the equivalent of theological bread and circuses. So it's that exactly what you say, Mark, this idea that came in to try and equate all life issues. So yeah, really disappointing from Biden, and disappointing more so that Pope Francis hasn't done as Benedict did and just clearly called him up on it.
Mm.
Which is a problem. And then we go from there to the fact that one of the most influential Oriental Orthodox churches has suspended theological dialogue that's been going on for about 20 years with the Catholic Church following the publication of Fiducia Supplicans, which is, again, one of these strange ironies that a pope so keen on dialogue brings to a close 20 years worth of dialogue with the most influential Oriental Orthodox Church. So I know, Gavin, you know quite a lot about this. Perhaps you can help explain this position, why this has happened, and what dialogue was taking place.
Well, people may not know very much about the Coptic Alexandrian Church. If you go to Alexandria, there's a cathedral there, and on the cathedral, you'll find a list of all the Alexandrian patriarchs. Starting with Mark, and then Mark's first convert was a cobbler, and he's the second
not actually me.
patriarch.
It's not actually me. It's another
It's
Mark.
not Mark. It's not that
No,
Mark.
it's not. This Mark. This
Worth
Mark is
saying, though.
he's named in honor of him, but it wasn't actually him in time traveling. And there's an unbroken line of patriarchs all the way through. They are as venerable and as stable as the patriarchs in Rome. It's just that Rome takes precedence. Of course it does, because of Peter and Paul. But the Patriarchate of Alexandria has been one of the 5 major patriarchates: Jerusalem, Rome, Antioch, Constantinople. And they've been in dialogue. I mean, there've been moments when there's been theological tension between us. Arius was one of the Alexandrian theologians, and look at the damage he did. So there's always scope for theological conversation between the 5 patriarchates. But their relationship is close and intimate and trusting. So for the Alexandrian Patriarchate to tell Rome that they're not going to talk to them anymore theologically, because they're so profoundly offended and upset at changing Christian teaching and understanding on homosexuality, is the most significant rebuke. I can't really think of anybody in historic traditional church circles or platforms who could carry more weight than the Alexandrian Patriarchate. I mean, maybe the Ecumenical Patriarch, perhaps. Moscow's a bit late. So Constantinople could, but actually, anyway, it doesn't really matter how you compare them. It's a very serious rebuke. And, once again, it's an example of what a bad Pope we have, that he's set up this document through such a person as Cardinal Fernandez, to the point where he's breached into Christian conversation. I mean, it's who would have thought it was possible?
Well, words, I don't even know what to say about it. It's so disappointing. And especially because Pope Francis is supposed to be, well, it's like he doesn't care about the things he should care about. So, for example, one of the big problems has been the letter that he signed in the United Arab Emirates, which, had some proper heretical positions that he was asked then to clarify. And he said, so it said that God wills a plurality of religions. And when he was asked to clarify, and he signed this document basically with the head of one of the Muslim sects, and as a result of that, he was asked to clarify, and he said, "Oh, it's the permissive will, not, it's not a deliberate will," which is it's a bit rubbish, really. And so, it seemed like he was prepared to just walk over barriers in order to sort of seek unity with Islam, or that theology doesn't matter anymore. That's what, unfortunately, that's how it came across. And here you can see that because he doesn't think theology matters very much, or he doesn't appear to. God forgive me if I'm reading him wrong, but this is how it seems to me. We end up in a situation where people who take theology very seriously are walking away, and it's a terrible, terrible thing to see, I think.
I'd like to make a comment on how that comment of Pope Francis's lands in Egypt. I spent some time there at an ecumenical conference, and on my way back, I was driven by a Coptic taxi driver, and he said, "For goodness sake, when you go back to Europe, tell them not to make the same mistake as we have made. We were the Christian majority, and Egypt was a Christian place, and then the Arabs came and they outbred us. And not only did they outbred us and impose Islam on us, but they now persecute us, and they bomb us in our churches. And so, as people know, over the last 10 years, the Muslim terrorists have been putting bombs in Christian Coptic churches and blowing them up." One of the most moving things I think I've almost ever seen in terms of contemporary Christian witness was the response of Coptic Christians to that. Instead of taking bombs to the mosques, they went outside into the streets and they began to sing the creed. Now, some people find the creed rather tedious in church. And one of the things that happened to me over my lifetime is I've become more and more excited about it, almost to the point of it being like a football chant. And I suddenly, when I saw the Copts singing it in the streets, I realized what a theological bomb it was, how absolutely profound it was, as they said, that they claimed this wonderful ancient faith, which Islam is absolutely dead set to silence, and it silences it by power and by persecution. Now, if you were a Coptic Christian in Alexandria and you were being bombed by the Muslims, what would you expect from the Pope in Rome? Would you not at least expect some solidarity, some compassion? Would you not expect some coalition of Christians across the world in solidarity? What they got instead was, inshallah, God wills, or this pluriformity of religions that destroys the people who love Jesus in Alexandria. Well, it stinks. It's really, really bad. And I'm sorry that I didn't really prepare this, because I would have gone onto YouTube and tried to show you these immensely brave men and women and children standing in the streets with the blood on the floor and their bombed out churches behind them, singing "I believe in one God," singing the Nicene and the Apostles' Creed as a show of fidelity and defiance. They deserve better from the patriarch in Rome than this.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the point in a lot of this discussion, which is really sad, isn't it? There's so much more that people need than they're getting. They need to be fed better than they're being fed at the moment, and it's the same with Biden. It's the same with the Copts, as you've said. It's just this complete sort of lack of the response you hope for from the man who holds this office, isn't it? It's like, well, really, for faithful Catholics who are really struggling. Yes, we understand your emphasis to reach out to the margins. We want to reach out to the margins too. That's the right response. But it doesn't have to be at the expense of people who are longing for real, clear teaching. And, it's just so disappointing, isn't it?
It's like none of it matters. That's how it feels, and we always know that there's clergy, people in positions of responsibility in the church who act that way, but for it to be the Holy Father doing this is very, very serious, I think, and very, very disappointing, especially when you put it in the context of, I mean, there've been, I'm not saying that there haven't been mistakes. If you look at, I think, Pope John Paul II, that famously had some meetings at Assisi that were, a little bit puzzled a lot of people. But here, I think we're in a far worse state at the moment. So please God, it will all get cleared up for the next Pope.
Yeah.
Next pope, please.
Ding ding.
Brilliant.
We'll get complaints about that.
Which it reminds me of those two Spanish priests of a YouTube program who said that they constantly pray for the health of the Holy Father and look forward to a swift deterioration, so there could be a new pope. They've been shut down, as you might expect. We make no comment on the Pope's health ourselves. We simply lament the fact that the office is used in the way it is at the moment.
Yeah, it's in God's hands. Yeah, we can pray for clarity, and however that comes is up to God. So anyway, well, thanks both for joining me on this Mothering Sunday. They're both bullying me on Mothering Sunday. Honestly, can't get the staff. Well, thank you both. Thank you so much, both of you, and thank you for joining us. And we've got an event this Thursday, haven't we, Mark? Hopefully, as many of you can come as are around London and able to come, get a ticket on the website, or just come and pay on the door. And we look forward to seeing you. And Mark and Gavin, both of you, say a little bit more about what people might expect when they arrive this Thursday, the 14th. 14th, isn't it? 14th of March. Yeah. In the Rosary Shrine in London.
We've not wanted to confuse people too much, because we want to use the same title for our Stonyhurst retreat as we do for March. And so the danger of inviting people to come to Paradigm Lost, which is what we're calling it, is that we were worried that people might be confused. But nonetheless, it's the same theme, because this is part of our apostolate. And part of our apostolate is to be lay voices calling for the defense and the renewal of the church. And each of us has a particular angle on this. And one of the things we want to do is to explain a little bit more in a way that is more of a sort of freestanding platform than what we do as we respond to news and culture week by week. And so we're going to begin. What is the paradigm lost? The paradigm lost is Christendom, and how can we recover it? And so one of the things that Catherine does is to call out essentially the battering ram that broke down Christian culture, which is feminism and the whole theology of sexuality and everything that flows from that, which includes, of course, gay marriage and trans rights. But it needs a woman to say, what's the Catholic vision of sexuality and womanhood? And so, in a sense, this is a theology of the body, the reconstituted body. Mark is going to talk about recapturing the theology of the mind. And he's going to do that because he's going to direct us to the theologians, and particularly the theologians in Vatican II, because Vatican II has become an unnecessary place of conflict, if you like, a false antithesis for Catholics to fall on one side or the other. And one of the things that Mark is by far the best read of all three of us in terms of the council documents, and what he wants to do and will do is to give us the depths of theology that actually contemporary Catholicism holds to allow us to confront the theological and the intellectual issues of the day. And I'm going to talk about recovering a theology of the heart. There are some very odd ideas about ecumenism and the whole business of relativism that the Catholic Church is involved in. And I want to say to people, in order to heal the Church, you need to fall in love with the Catholic Church, fall in love with Our Lady, fall in love with our Lord and the Mass, and sign up to full-blown high-octane Catholicism. So this is paradigm regained, and the three of us are going to talk about this and really invite you to ask questions, to meet you, and to lay our wares on the table. And this, if you like, is the first development of what we're trying to do. We're hoping to unwrap this not just once, but to deepen it as we go. Well, guys, I've talked a lot. Time for you both to jump in and to modify, correct, or develop it further.
I think you've done a great job, Gavin.
Yeah, I think you did a really good job. Well done. I'm quite excited about this whole thing, because it really does fascinate me. My particular angle on it is something that has fascinated me for a long while, and something that I've tried to really study in depth. So, and I think it's born of my love of Pope Benedict XVI, really, who was an advocate for the hermeneutic of continuity, and I can't see how we can just kick out Vatican II. So, and I think if you look at it in the right way and what was said, then you can see that it is orthodox, that it's a return to Christology, and you've got to sort of see it in a Christocentric way. And the other things was I don't know if everyone's watched my video with Father Jeff. I'm doing some videos on evangelisation that I'm really enjoying. Some cheeky blighter said that if he closed his eyes, he couldn't tell the difference between Father Jeff and my voice. So Father Jeff sent me a picture of the craze and said maybe we should have this as the so that's all going well. But it was interesting from a parish priest sort of perspective. I've managed to talk one of my Baptist friends into doing it with me, so that'll be interesting. And Father Calvin Robinson said he'd do it with me as well. So, because I don't know, I watched what was it called, Fox and Father, his new thing that he's doing, and he actually did a really, really sterling job defending the Catholic faith against what, like Lawrence Fox's just regular difficult questions. He was asking difficult questions, and I thought Calvin did a really good job in defending it. So obviously that his reach and his apostolate has got an it's evangelistic, isn't it? And it's in its own way. So he's reaching a different sort of audience. I think they said the taxi drivers of London were firm supporters. So that's stuff to look forward to from me. And you guys have been doing stuff as well, haven't you?
Yeah, well, we've started this Gutter and Stars Culture Talks podcast, just sort of trying to see where it goes, and it may take a different direction to the one we intended as we deliver content and people respond. But we do have a conversation with Andrew Petitprin coming up, who recently wrote a book called Popcorn with the Pope about the Vatican film list. The perhaps who knew there was a film list, but there is, and Andrew Petitprin talks to us about that. So there's lots of things that we are starting to do, and more yet that we plan to do. But and as Gavin said, although we have a structure at which we'll all speak on a little bit of that over the course of our live events, it's only a starting point. So I think, as with many of these things, it's really in the question and answers, it's in the Q&A when we can dialogue with one another, that some unexpected fruits come out of that conversation. So we're not limiting it to just those topics, but we're going to go in with those as a starting point and then see where the conversation takes us. And we're completely open to discussions about anything that you, as our viewers, as our audience coming to see, would like to talk about. What focus you think would be helpful to you and in your communities and your lives, and we'll do the best we can to say something useful.
Well, I just find that the combination that the three of us bring to this is effervescent, it's innovating, it's really lovely, and much of it's planned, but inevitably some of it will be spontaneous, and the Holy Spirit will be in both. But what we really want to do is to develop a community of like-minded people who share the vision and want to support it, either practically or by prayer or by companionship, because we have to do what we were encouraging the Irish Church to do, which is to renew the Church, to find a new vigor and confidence in what we're doing, and that's something we think we can bring to the table.
Yeah, and do remember to keep us in mind if you somewhere in the UK and you think you would like us to come and visit your parish. If you let us know, then we'll look at our calendars and see if we can make that happen, because that's one of the things with your support that we said that we would do and would like to do is to go and visit you in your parishes and in your areas, because I know not all of you will be in London or even in the UK, but where we can, we'd like to come and see you. So thanks very much.
Yeah.
So thanks for watching. I'm Catherine Bennett.
I'm Mark Lambert.
I'm Gavin Ashenden.
Lovely.